Hi, welcome to ClassThink. I'm here with Bharath from Securely, which is well, I think it's a revolutionary web filtering product from the US. We're going to have a look at. He's going to sort of talk us through the product and his company, and really sort of share some of the things we've been testing out at ClassThink, and see what you think of it. Hi, Bharath.
Hey Carl, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Well, do you just want to introduce yourself and your company and a bit about the product that we're interested in?
Sure, I'm Bharath. I'm co-founder and CTO of Securely. So we are a Silicon Valley-based company. What we are is a cloud-based web filter for schools, and the reason that's interesting is because of the fact that pretty much every school in the world that has internet connectivity, either because the law says so or because of cultural reasons, needs a web filter. But one thing is very rare because most of these web filters are appliance based. So schools are forced to buy, invest capital expenditure in stuff they could have just maybe pumped in educational software or other things into buying this big fat appliance that also chokes up the bandwidth. And they typically also don't have the technical resources it takes to install that appliance. So the fact that we're cloud-based makes us interesting from a total cost of ownership perspective and from an easy to install perspective. And the other thing that makes us interesting is the fact that we are completely school focused, because every single customer we have is a school, versus a lot of our other competitors out there that are focused on selling to large enterprises, and for them schools and K-12 is an afterthought. And the third thing that makes us interesting is the fact that we filter any device anywhere. So not just Chromebooks, but MacBooks, Windows PCs, pretty much any device as it moves seamlessly between and outside campus.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, well, the reason we sort of came across Securely was because we're actually rolling out an iPad one-to-one deployment and a Chromebook one-to-one deployment at two separate schools. So we were looking for a filtering system that a lot of the filtering systems we're looking at relied on you either have a box installed in the school and it just siloed, you couldn't access that from outside the school, or it went through sort of local government filtering systems, which again you couldn't access from outside the school. And it was really inflexible. So when we found sort of Securely, it really sort of opened our eyes to what was possible and what just this a fairly simple change in having the service cloud hosted could mean for the students. Have you found that in a lot of schools?
I quite don't understand the question. Like, are many schools going cloud-based? Is the question?
With the filtering, have you found sort of schools are more familiar with the
So
filtering?
interestingly enough, pretty much the only cloud-based player out there is a player called OpenDNS, and which you may have heard of, Carl. But basically, what there is a all or nothing solution. So like us, they're DNS-based, but really it's block everything or allow everything. For something like Google, for example, which is a de facto 21st century classroom tool, with OpenDNS, you either block Google or allow Google, but you can't really prevent the fact that kids can go on Google and search for something inappropriate and cause a huge classroom distraction, right? But with us, we have this secret sauce we call selective proxying. And what selective proxying does is that for a very small number of websites like Google and YouTube, and for those websites that require differentiation based on user, we actually proxy them through our cloud-based proxies. And the fact that we do this for such a small amount of traffic makes the whole process from user experience perspective very lightweight and efficient.
That's brilliant.
So the answer to the question is yes, we have seen schools adopt cloud-based technologies for filtering, but really the only player other than us is really OpenDNS, and that's kind of where we fill the void by coming in and saying we have a solution that meets the needs of schools versus something it's a more blunt force domain blocker.
So could you explain to some of because most of our audience is fairly technical, could you just explain a bit how Securely works in terms of the filtering and how it works on Chromebooks as opposed to desktops and iPads maybe?
Sure, absolutely. So it really boils down to we are a single unified solution, which means that we can manage everything, policies, reporting, auditing, everything from a single unified dashboard, central dashboard. But we vary, the deployment really varies based on what device you're using and where you're using it. So for example, for in-school filtering, all you need to do is point your DNS forward to us, and all of your in-school devices are filtered instantaneously. For Chromebooks, we have a Chrome extension that's available off the Google Apps App Store. For iPads going home, it's a global proxy that you set via MDM. And also for Windows and MacBooks going home, if you're doing that, we go with DNS-based approach as well. And the other interesting thing is that we are the first and only web filter to tie into Google Apps for Education. And what that means is that you can use your Google Apps organizational units to tie policies to users. So that's one more interesting thing that differentiates us. And with schools that are going Google Apps and getting rid of the local AD installations, we tend to be a very attractive solution.
And does it work with Active Directory as well? For example, if a school is using Office 365 and wants to use that instead, it will securely work with that as well?
So not right now, but that's on the cards.
Okay.
Because that's been an extremely popular ask among schools, and as we try to enter the UK market, that's been probably the top asked feature.
Mm-hmm.
So we are aware of the fact that need exists for Active Directory, and we really see Google Apps as an initial niche that we occupy that we can use to jump into the much larger space of web filtering that's driven by AD really.
Yeah, one of the things we found about the setup was not to act like I continue to promote the product, but we setting it up for our Chromebooks, for example, we've just taken an order of 300 Chromebooks, and it was getting it working was literally just a case of going to the Google Apps control panel, selecting to install the plugin, and it just pushed it out to all the Chromebooks, and it was just immediately working. There's no messing about with proxy settings or DNS settings. It just started working, and that's within our current setup. So we didn't actually have to change anything. You just push out the plugin, and it just worked. And likewise with the DNS setting changes on the desktops, it was literally just a case of going to the DNS, changing the DNS forwarders. And it just started filtering out everything that was accessing the internet. For such a sort of sophisticated system, it was amazing how quick it was to set up. So a lot of network managers are going to be concerned about things like data protection and the security of their data, particularly if they're maybe a lot of our audience are in the UK as well, and the safe harbor agreement. How do you deal with that side of things?
So we've heard of this before. We really are not part of any formal EU organizations that advocate child safety or whatever. But what we can say is this, So basically, we don't expose the data to anybody who doesn't need the data. Essentially, we're not going to go and turn around and sell it to third parties or whatever. The data is safe with us is the pledge we make to all of our customers, and basically the data is exposed to only people who need to see it. So in this case, senior school leadership, IT admins, and right around the corner in the fall we have a parent product coming out where parents can basically log in securely and see what their child is up to at school and on their take-home devices as well. Mm-hmm. So basically, the point I would like to emphasize is that we are not really breaking any norms in terms of exposing data to people who shouldn't be having the data.
Brilliant. What's your sort of your scale at the moment? How many schools are you in, and how many students are you filtering content for?
Mostly in the US, but we are seeing growth in the UK, Canada, and the Asia Pacific region. Probably 220,000 paying seats, 500 schools,
wow.
And about 100,000 of those are take-home devices.
Oh, really? Do you see that as is that your sort of focus as sort of the one-to-one area? Is that your sort of main thrust of the product at the moment?
No, the one-to-one. Last year, for example, actually the one-to-one take-home program made us most of our revenues, really. But really, what we see our story, our grand story, is being a unified filter. So not just those one-to-one devices, but devices in school as well, which is kind of where the majority of the schools still are in the UK and elsewhere in the world, mm-hmm. Where they're not really sending devices home with the kids, but they have devices, a robust technology program inside the school that they need filtered and protected.
Wow. And do you see that is there a market outside of because obviously the students are taking the devices home, it starts to sort of bleed into the home life as well. Do you think there's a consumer market for this sort of product as well? Because I can see parents being really interested in it.
Yep. So interestingly, Securely actually started as a consumer company, way back in the day. Well, way back in the day, meaning 2 years ago, and we ended up pivoting to K through 12 because consumers were hard to monetize and brand trust was hard to acquire.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have the brand trust, and we have our IT admin friends in various schools who are ready to evangelize us to their parent community. And that being the case, it just makes natural sense for us to segue into the parent market.
Brilliant. So what's the sort of the future for Securely? Where are you? Where's the sort of the roadmap you're looking at?
So it's interesting that I haven't even spoken about this yet, and we've spoken for a number of minutes. But really, our latest thrust has not so much been web filtering, because we see that as something we can do and other people can do as well. But really, the thrust of the company right now is around analytics, learning analytics. So Carl, you've probably seen the dashboard, which basically gives a very, very detailed overview of how kids are engaging with technology, and how kids are engaging in educational technology specifically. So just making those visual dashboards available to parents, teachers, and IT admins and school leadership is really the thrust of the company right now. Web filtering is something we were doing well a year ago, but really the future is on learning analytics. That's how we see it.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, that is one of the things I really like about this type of product, is that you can provide a sort of a core service and really focus it on education. Because one of the things we found is that there's no filtering service, as far as we can see, that's really dedicated to education, and being able to build extra products on the side of that and sort of expand that usage out is really quite exciting from a network administrator point of view, and also not having to manage that and do that all in-house, and knowing that there's a team that's specifically dedicated to building that up is really, really fantastic.
Yep.
Could you tell us a little bit? I've noticed on your website there's sort of a free version for, I assume, for the smaller schools. I know a lot of primary schools would be interested in that. Could you just tell us a little bit more about it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we just announced the launch of our free version. It will actually be launched end of August formally, when it will actually be made available to schools. But if schools are interested earlier than that, they can get in touch with us, and we'll take them through the entire support process. But if they choose to go back to free, they can absolutely do that. But in a nutshell, the free version is everything the paid version has, except it doesn't have support, and it has a cap on the number of users. And really what the cap does is it really addresses our double bottom line mission as a company. Because what we have realized over time is that the smallest of schools are often the ones that are the most strapped for money. At least in the US, the larger school districts have a budget line item for web filtering. The smaller guys, they have to jump through all kinds of hoops to basically have a solution that works for them. And really what we are hoping here is that it aligns with that mission of helping schools while growing as a profitable and sustainable company.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks very much for sharing your product with us. Is there anything else you wanted to share with us today?
Well, that's pretty much it, Carl. So I would encourage your viewers to go to www.securlysecurely.com and check us out and get in touch with us if they're interested in the product. There's always awesome stuff happening. We literally have new features coming out every other week. So it's an exciting new product. I urge you guys to check it out. Thanks.
That's great. Thanks very much, Bharath. And as I say, we're using the product quite extensively. We're looking at rolling out to a couple more schools as well. So I'm really excited to see how Securely develops. And
excellent.
Thanks for taking your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.